All right, welcome to another episode of Bram Radio Podcast, where we tackle a bunch of stuff that us dudes just like hearing about, but also get into some of the issues. Parenting, marriage, our relationship with God, our relationships with each other, and the things that also pester us down in the bowels of our hearts. But today's guest is awesome. I want to tell you about, he's also one of my best friends on this planet. He's a business partner of mine in, well, we did what, four-ish things if we count them all.
I mean, categories or like entities and I mean, I don't know.
It's
could be more.
It's a lot. It's
whatever.
a lot. And but also is now starting construction on the most prestigious golf course to ever be built. And we're going to hear all about that, because if you like golf, you're definitely going to want to stick around for the entirety of this podcast. From Rancho Cucamonga, which is so fun to say, by way of Colorado, and graduate of Wheaton College, spent time at Charles Schwab, also went to Pepperdine University and got a master's degree in dispute resolutions, of all things. Overachievers.
Low self-esteem, really.
I hate you, dude.
That's why I have low self-esteem.
Yeah.
My best friends say I hate you all the time, so I have to make up for it with, degrees. And
But 10 years at Charles Schwab, met the love of your life, married her, had two amazing kids, and then along comes Junior Rankin Bramstead to go ahead and add some spice to your life, which I did in spades, and some gave you some headaches, and we have done some really fun stuff together, and I am so stoked to have Mr. Brian Tucker in the house. Brian Tucker. Anyway, Brian, good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you.
Thanks for being here.
We've also gone through and done some really not fun stuff. I mean,
Yes.
which, we're also fun.
You know, one of my favorite things to do with you is argue. I tell this story all the time.
Wait, you're very comfortable with conflict?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, you are. Yeah.
It's going to be that kind of podcast, folks.
Yeah. My wife's very comfortable, with conflict. I got a master's in conflict resolution, thinking that it would help me.
Conflict resolution, not dispute.
No, it's a MDR, master's in dispute resolution. So,
okay.
No, I'm just, we're talking about conflict, and it has not helped me win one argument with Sonia.
Who also has a very massive brain, much like yourself, Dr. Tucker, that she is. And Sonia, dude, that's my tribe right there. Dude, that's my tribe, dude. She's my people. I freaking love that girl. She is so funny because
she's dark skinned, so that's why he's saying, she's my people. Oh no, you were just talking about too. Like okay, yeah.
She will let you know.
Yeah, no, one of the many, many amazing things about my wife is that you never have to guess where you stand,
Mm-hmm. My kid's favorite story is when they were at church, they found the rope climbs, because the time church was a gym, and they were out back and they were climbing the rope climbs, and they're fast rope climbs, and she came out there and like, "What are you doing? Don't climb that." Well, Brian said we could climb it. I am the boss of Brian. They love that story. I am the boss of Brian. So. Has that come up today?
Yeah. I just saw Sam, and first thing he said was like, "I'm the boss of Brian." Thanks, Sam. Yep. So I'm reminded, in case I forget, that Sonia always outranks me. Yep.
I have one of those too.
Yeah.
I have one of those too.
Yes.
So, bring me up to speed on your so I probably missed some stuff in that bio. So tell us about you first.
You know,
slow walks on the beach. I mean, you can say all that.
I mean, horseback riding. My favorite color is mauve. But no, I mean, I'm a PK, pastor's kid.
So am I.
But one of them's always like the rebellious one, and the other kid's always like the good one. I still don't know which one I am, but yeah. My oldest son, Santiago, is now playing football at Wheaton College. And
your alma mater.
My alma mater. And he is the 4th generation of college football players. You walk down our hallway and you see my grandpa in a leather helmet play for Pomona College. My dad played for UCLA. I played for Wheaton. And it was like in our blood that, it's a requirement, that you have to play football in college. And Sonia would never let the boys play football ever. She's like, no. She's a doctor. It's like, no, I know what it does to your brain. No, absolutely not. And she said, and I said, this was early on. They're playing soccer and stuff like that. So she said
and rugby.
They can play any other sport. And I'm like, what's a gateway drug to football?
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, so, because Sonia's like a woman of her word, so you can occasionally, get her, with what she says. So I said, okay, so they could play any other sport but football. She's like, yeah, okay. And she,
you Brian Tucker.
Yeah, like a month or two later.
Brian Tucker.
She shows up at home from working or whatever, and the boys have their, scrum hats on, and she's like, what's that? It's like rugby. And she's like, it's not football. And they were young too, so they played rugby their entire the entirety along with soccer of their youth. And so Santiago never played football, but he was a halfback, and he also kicked the rugby ball. When you score a try, sometimes from the sidelines you got to like bend it in and stuff like that. And so when he went to college, I'm like, hey, Santiago, you could probably kick a football. It's much easier than a bloated, light rugby ball. And so we did it, and I sent it to one of my old coaches. I play football at Wheaton too, and he's still there after like 25 years. And he's like, oh yeah, have him come out. So he's on the football team.
Nice. Walked on to a college football team.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
And then the other one is just a little monster. And I'm not little. By little, I say that sarcastically because you sent me the picture yesterday of you and Sebastian side by side, and he is just huge.
Yeah, he's like 6'2", 215, 220. Last year as a freshman in high school, he played rugby, and he was all county, and they were like a St. Augustine is a top 10 nationally ranked rugby, so it was a good squad. So it was a lot of fun. And then he started playing football because, it was a gateway drug, so like Santiago's not playing. And I'm like, hey, Sonia, they got to let the little brother play. You know what I'm saying? It's not fair, And so he started playing. So they actually won last Friday CIF,
wow.
which is like Division I in San Diego. So this weekend they play an LA team for all of Southern California, and then if they win, they go to state and play the Division I Northern California team. So it's kind of fun.
That's awesome. Tell me about what you're doing now, because you and I we partnered up and we bought Skydive San Diego along with our third partner, who would get super mad at us if we even mentioned his name.
Yeah, so we won't mention.
We won't mention Jimmy at all.
Jimmy Earp's, his name, because that would be.
Yeah, he would just be so mad if we did that. And I'm not going to send him this podcast at all.
No. We'll keep it secret.
Yeah. So anyway, so dude, you're safe. Bro,
don't worry, we got you.
Inside joke. So after this, now you are moving on to something that has been a dream of yours that you have had in the hopper. 17 years now.
When you say it like that, it sounds like,
it's
like I'm
18 years. It's actually 18 years.
sounds like I'm really slow, which is true.
Well, there's also this thing called God's timing that has also played a role in this, and that's one thing that it did not escape you. Like you knew all along what was happening there with that, and that the time was coming, and now the time is here, and you are getting to actually birth the dream that you have been working on for so long. And for me now, like on the sidelines as like a cheerleader for you, right? As you're out there doing that. And I am, dude, Zach over there spent a lot of time as a cheer coach and stuff like that. That's me. I am like the Zach of you. I am over there. Dude, it's so exciting watching this whole thing come together. You have got to tell us about what this golf course looks like, where it is, and what it looks like, because there is nothing like it on the planet.
Thank you for those kind words. Yeah, it's been quite an adventure, and it's been a fun one. I think it was fun. The first 2 years were a little rough, but for the most part, it's been fun because God put it on my heart that like this is what you're supposed to do. This is your purpose. And so,
but to put that in perspective though, right? here's the big thing. The big perspective of that is that you had a amazing, very lucrative job on Wall Street at Charles Schwab when this dream dropped for you, and you left all of that to go do this. But then in the meantime, you did a lot of other business stuff too along the way, making you a very seasoned business guy, primarily real estate, right? And then the stuff that you learned along the way, like you had to go through a process first, right?
Yeah.
Before you get a dream, and a dream coming to fruition is it's not an event. It's not like, oh, and here you go. Well, I mean, it can happen that way. I'm sure it has for some people, but that doesn't happen for me. That did not happen for you. This is something that you had to go through a gestation process to get there. And a lot of people don't understand that when they see people who are successful, they don't understand the what that guy had to go through to get there. And if he had seen the price tag of what it was going to cost, he probably would reevaluate. If he's any bit of a normal human, he would probably go, I don't know about that. But after being several years into this, the price tag was revealed to you in a way, and you were just like, I'm all in. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. At age 30, I had achieved everything that I could at Charles Schwab, and finished my master's degree, and it was very lucrative, big, beautiful custom house, and it wasn't. I was destined to do something more, and God, a couple years leading up to resigning from Charles Schwab, is when God put it on my heart. And sometimes it's a little tricky where you have this dream and this passion, and like, is it God inspired? Is it? So at age 30, I said, all right, let's roll, baby. And I resigned, and all of my coworkers and the guys that I had met, throughout my 20s were like, what is wrong with you? I was managing a little over $1 billion at the time, and your portfolio, typically grows, and so you get paid more and more money. And you don't just, walk away from that. And it's not like you can sell it to somebody else at Charles Schwab, like the company owns that. They own their clients and so on and so forth. Some of the other firms are different. And so you're just basically, walking away from your real estate portfolio that you built, and so it was financially unwise to do this. But I knew I had to, because each year it got more and more unwise. You make more money, and and so poor Sonia has a different risk tolerance than I do. You know, she grew up in Venezuela, and she and God probably made most wives and mothers with a lower risk tolerance to worry about tonight. What are we going to put on the food on the table tonight? And men with, like, you know, aspirational dreams that are, you know, for me, 17 years away, you know, we have a 1 year and a 5 year, you know, plan or an idea or whatever. And that's how, like, you know, a man and a woman typically, you know, work best in raising family. So
that's a healthy perspective, though, because a lot of people don't realize that difference, that women are wired differently when it comes down to risk, and risk being risk averse. They look at things from a security perspective, where men, I think, you know, Jimmy said it best. Remember when he sent you that text message? You showed it to me, and we were just like, wow, like, that's deep. And he just said, hey, tell the boys to
drive fast and take chances.
Drive fast and take risks, which is what he does. He
was on a boat, and he broke his something, you know, his femur or something. Yeah. No,
in the Bahamas, like, away from. Yeah.
Absolutely. Different risk tolerances. And, you know, Sonia, to this day, we have 2 different bank accounts. She's an executive at a big hospital, and her money goes into her bank account. When she looks at her bank account and she's all the cash in there, it gives her a sense of security. Mm-hmm. And peace. When I look at my checking account, like, every dollar I have in there, I think of, like, that's a dollar wasted that could be invested into real estate, you know, leveraged with a mortgage, you know, in something, or a business growing. And it's you know, with inflation, and so we figured out to have 2 different bank accounts, and it worked. But anyway, that's what we do in our family too. Yeah. It's just an analogy to represent, you know, our risk tolerances, and for us that works, and it's great. So I was about ready to resign. I said, hey, sweetheart, you know, why don't you come to the office with me, and I'm going to pack up my things. You know, we're going to do it together. And she's like, okay. And she came to the office, and I started packing up my things. Like, this is the most exciting, you know, I'm at age 30. I'm going out the top of my game, and I'm going to go to the Wild West, develop a golf course in a third world country. You know, what could go wrong? And this is an adventure. And she lasted like 15 seconds. She started crying, and she ran out of there.
I never heard that story.
Yeah. And then it was, and I resigned. And it was like 10 days later. I had a piece of land in Baja that was going to be the golf course, and I realized
people may not know what Baja is.
Yeah, in Mexico, we're here in San Diego. The border's like 3 miles from here, from the drop zone here, and I live in Coronado Island, which is about 10 minutes from the border. So Baja is the state of Baja California, you know, which is Ensenada and Rosarito. All the way down to Cabo. And so I had resigned to go build this golf course. It was going to be super easy. I had this piece of land. It was oceanfront. It was great. And then I realized that, like, the land was gone. And this was about 10 days after I resigned. And that day, Sonia said, hey, look at this. I'm pregnant with our second. This is going to work, right? You know, and I was like, yes, of course it's going to work. 17 years later, it's been an overnight success. And so it was that night that I was on the computer. It was like 3 a.m. Of course I can't sleep, you know, like, what have I got us into? And I was like, God, please tell me this wasn't my idea, and I asked you to bless it. Like, please tell me that like this was your idea. And he said, you'll see. And I was on the computer, and this program called Google Earth had just come out, and it was like crazy. You couldn't see a lot of it, maybe half of it, because there were clouds covering it over. It was the very first, Google thing, but you could fly over the world without having to travel there. And when I was a kid growing up, really in high school, we had gone down to Ensenada to help build this church and school in what's now the Wine Valley. And we would go to this place called La Bufadora, which is a tourist attraction. It's the second largest blowhole in the world. Waves come in and it shoots up. And it was out on this peninsula. And so I was, on the Google Earth, I was looking at the tip of this peninsula, there's this big 1,200-foot mountain which goes straight down to the ocean on both sides. And you just assume it does on the third side. But Google Earth came out, and it looked like there was a little flat piece of land on the other side. So, and because of the clouds, I couldn't tell. And so the next day I drove down and I hiked up to the top of this mountain peak, Empire State Building high, just for reference. And there was a cloud up there. And so I couldn't see, so I waited and waited and waited. About an hour or two later, the wind kind of parted the clouds and the sun shone down, and I saw this piece of land down below, and it was like the Holy Grail. I heard the angels sing, and it was God just showing off. He's like, I got you. This wasn't your idea. Like I put this on your heart. And so then that sort of bolstered my confidence and peace that this is going to be all right.
And then along the way, there was some big names that have come and gone, and now you're in a place where you have just started. You've broken ground, and you're starting to build. And to put it in perspective, also for the golf course or the golfers that are out there, there are 7 places where you're flying a golf ball over water.
There's 7, 8, depending on a tee box, 8 holes where you have to hit your ball over the ocean. They have forced carries, over ocean carries. Yeah. Wow. It's at the tip of a peninsula, so it's surrounded on 3 sides by the Pacific, and you have all these like fingers that kind of go out in the water. So it attracted all the big names. It was the most sought after golf course design. Your mom could have designed the golf course, and it would have been the top whatever, in the world the day it opens, because the land is really special. So except the landowner said, I'll never sell. And he stayed true to his word. But he lived to be 93 years old. So that's why the 17-year, journey, it was just 2 years ago, after he passed away. Luckily I had a great relationship with he and his kids. The kids said, hey, you're the one to buy the land. So 2 years ago we closed on it. I brought on, Hugo Salinas, with his father, Ricardo, which are, big business guys who love golf. And they bought in on the philosophy and the vision to build the greatest golf course in the world, the greatest golf course that we could build there, instead of trying to maximize ROI, which is what you typically do if you want to maximize, profit, is you put as much real estate on there as possible. So you have as much density, whatever you're selling, condo towers, lots, whatever. And I wanted to master plan this piece of land. It's only 300 acres, and you can't buy it next door. 3 sides of ocean, and the other's a mountain. So I wanted to do just a small amount of villas and casitas for the club, and not have membership attached to real estate. Normally you you buy your way into a golf club through the purchase of real estate, whether that's $5 million or $10 million or whatever. Ours, I wanted to be just membership so that we could choose the most exceptional, greatest families without compromise. You don't have the asshole egomaniac guy who, bought a $12 million lot. So you got to let him in, and you can't kick him out because he owns, a house there. And there's in many golf clubs, there's a group of guys that are like, kind of compromise the club. And so we wanted to build a club which needed a business plan which would support that, which we did.
So now you have this monstrosity being built down there now, and it's not just golf. I mean, talk about the surf side of it, because Toto Santos is like right there. Toto Santos is 5-minute jet ski ride.
Yeah,
out to the
Yeah. The way you drive, it's like 3.5. I've seen you drive a jet ski before, but for normal people, it's like 4 or 5. It wasn't my idea. It was Slater's idea. Kelly's like loves golf like almost more than surfing. I think he's like a 2 handicap, and he said, Totos has 7 surf breaks, one of which is one of the largest surf breaks in the world, called Killers, but it's also known as Totos. But there's like 30 surf breaks within like a 10-minute jet ski ride or boat ride. And he said, so don't make surfing just be one of the other activities you do at this golf club. Make it be a golf and surf club. The surfing is so good, and they're empty waves. Totos, the 7 surf breaks, it's on these 2 desolate islands that it's right off the tip, so no one's ever there. So,
wow,
I thought about it for a while, and then we did that. We leaned into it 5 years ago or so and made it a golf and surf plug. And in fact, we launched this year a big wave surf event. We called it Thriller at Killers. And January we got a 50-foot plus surf break there, and it was incredible. So yeah, we'll never have host the Masters or a golf tournament there, but we have our own surf tournament, so it's kind of cool. Yeah,
nice. So, walk me through how vision works, because I know how it works for me, but everybody has their own take on vision, and how to take a vision from it being a vision. How did you go through the process of, you had to go through some doubt. You had to go through you doubted yourself. I bet sometimes you even questioned God, like, God, seriously? Like you had mentioned that. But how do you manage all that together? If you have a vision for something and it seems to be moving away from you as you're moving towards the direction, you have God going, God has you going in this direction, but it seems to be going away from you. Now, I'm not asking that for podcast reasons. I'm asking that for Bram reasons, because I'm in that situation. I'm in that situation on a couple different fronts. And so walk me through how you did that piece of it, because that's a big one. And I bet you I'm not the only dude out there that's like, I kind of got a question about vision. Walk me through yours.
Yeah, great question. It was 2 years after I resigned. Put the whole deal together, awarded the contract to Tiger to design the golf course, brought on Red McCombs, a billionaire out of Texas, owned the Minnesota Vikings, San Antonio Spurs, understands he never golfed in his life, but he understood the value of an athlete on a team. Randy Moss and Tim Duncan and David Robinson for his sports franchises. And then a year later, so 3 years after, 2008 happened, and the world crashed, and the landowner is still not sold. And I had spent everything that I had. And it was like a year after that unemployment, I didn't know, but Sonia applied for food stamps called EBT card. And I was wondering where she was getting the money to buy those extra groceries, and also bankruptcy. I had a personal guarantee to something really big, which I'm not able to disclose, but related to the project. And that was the way that I was able to renegotiate, but had to go through BK. But didn't matter. I had no money. I had invested it all in this thing, and now it was gone. So now in the darkness,
Wow.
And in 2008 and 2009 were hard and bad for everybody. But God gave me a peace through the storm. So it must have seemed bizarre to Sonia. It did seem bizarre to Sonia and my friends are like, your dream is just, crushed. And you have no money and you're, we were going to a Bible study at the time and someone gave us 30 coupons for 7-Eleven hot dogs. Sandial brought it up to me the other night. And, but it had an expiration of like 2 weeks from now. So it was no problem. We had 30 7-Eleven hot dogs, in the next 12 days or whatever. It was for me, I had to work hard to reinvent myself, figure out how to provide for the family. Sonia was raising the boys. They were very, very tiny. So she wasn't working. And, when you have for me at least, when you have a vision and a dream and a passion, an idea, you can't just say dream at all cost. It's like, no, because then if you ever achieve the dream, which likelihood is, maybe low that you achieve it, but if you do achieve it and you have no relationship with your kids, no wife, friends, then what's the point, right? And so it was this sort of secret that God and I held, because He gave me this piece, like, hey, I got you. Don't stress. Did you ever see Apocalypse Now?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a rhetorical question.
You answered a rhetorical question, Bram. Good job.
Just want to see if you're engaged still. Do you remember? do you remember Bob, the actor Bob? Geez, it's like there's two things you do on this beach: you can fight, you can surf. Anyway,
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
The actor's name is Bob. Darn it. Anyway, he's walking around. Duvall, nice. Yeah. Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
That's why Bob didn't work. Okay, Robert Duvall. He's walking around, and there's landmines, and there's missiles, and there's bullets going on, exploding all around him, and the guys are like, and
he's looking at the surf.
He's standing straight up and walking around and not flinching at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it must have looked like during this moment. Where I'm just like walking around and, we moved to a 2-bedroom apartment and go in the jacuzzi with the kids and the pool and like it was just like you're like, yeah, bankruptcy and like, yeah, it's, so I had to reinvent myself and had to work hard. And God and I shared this little secret that like Punta Brava was going to happen. And I couldn't, it was so like far-fetched. I looked crazy if I would ever talk about it. Mm-hmm. And Sonia, like soon thereafter, would be like, hey, by the way, I don't want to know about anything. I don't want you to talk about Punta Brava with me. She said ever, but as so it was like, no, it's understandable. I probably looked crazy. And so, the vision stayed, and it was something like deep down, and it was fun because God and I had the secret. I remember, we got a bunch of like polo shirts or whatever that had, they're embroidered with Punta Brava, and they were in the trunk of my car one time, or I had like master plans or golf maps. I can't remember. And I was at a buddy's house, and we were out front, and I opened the trunk, and like some of that stuff fell out, and he's like, oh, you still doing that thing? He's like that clothing company, right? The clothing, because it was, anyway, but yeah, it was, I read Man's Search for Meaning, Victor, and he talked about getting through the Holocaust.
Yeah, that's an old book.
Yeah. He, the people who lived, if they had control over it, some people didn't have control, but if they had the control over their living, because some guys would just be like, I'm done, and they would, commit suicide or whatever. He said you had to hold on in your mind to your purpose. For him, it was this manifesto book that he, he's a psychologist. Some guys, it was their wife, getting back to their wife, and some guys it was something else. So for me, this was it. So I could have gone through anything, and it wouldn't have fazed me. Like, every single night before I went to bed, I would walk through the golf course, and the topography is really, you've seen it.
Yes, it's crazy.
There's so much undulations and rock outcrops, and there's like 50 different coves and fingers out. And the golf course was really like a 3D puzzle. Tiger said it is a 3D puzzle that, if solved, it would be the greatest golf course in the world. It took him 23 separate 18-hole routing plans, and Tom Doak, took that and made a couple tweaks and is now designing and the detailed stuff. But I'd walk through the routing plans. There were some holes that didn't work, and then we got it set. But that's how I would fall asleep at night. And but it was something more. It wasn't just a strategy how to fall asleep. And I didn't really realize it. It was how I kept like my true north of the vision every night. And it was fun. Again, it takes me a while to go to sleep. So it'd be 30, 45 minutes, walking through, in my mind, I had the topography memorized, and there was a moment during the 10 years of nothing, of where I thought, I have to stop this, because this isn't going to happen. Like, and I'm doing other things, with you, and it's not like I'm this crazy person out on the street. I was providing for my family, and eventually rebuilt some of what I invested. And so for 6 months, I forced myself that when I went to sleep, I couldn't think about it. And then and had some interesting conversation with gods, and then something happened. Significant, and it was God being like, no, absolutely, like the dream, the vision's there. No, it's going to happen. Like, remember, we got this thing, like we got this secret that we're sharing. So, and I was like, oh my gosh, this, I was like, this is so exciting.
So when you're talking about how you heard God, in the middle of this storm of adversity that was happening for you financially, business wise, the by every human position that you could be in, right? Like the gymnastics that you had to go through to still stay engaged with the vision, right? You had to hear God in there somewhere. And a lot of guys don't know what God's voice sounds like. I know what it sounds like to me. What does it sound like?
Moses. Oh, no.
What does it sound like to you?
For me, it's a feeling of peace and anxiety is one of the ways that I hear God's voice. When I make a decision or I'm in the process of making a decision, I'm someone who gets excited no matter what. If it's a terrible idea, I'm like, let's go,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. And it's
some of it has been your ideas, Yeah. Some of the good ones. I mean, a few bad ones, but whatever. And so I can't rely on my excitement because that will happen every time. But it's the peace or anxiety that attaches to the excitement is God's way of communicating with me. Like, yes. So during this adversity, during this craziness, which wasn't just like, there were some very dramatic moments. My architect, golf course architect, hit a tree.
Hit a tree like in his car?
Yeah. He was trying to outrun somebody chasing him with a golf club. Okay,
never mind. That guy. I'm tracking.
the 2008 stock market crash. Tiger won the U.S. Open in 2008, but he had to go in a playoff round, and he was planning on coming down to Punta Brava. And they asked him Sunday night, "Oh, you got to go to work tomorrow, playoff round. What'd you plan on doing? Relax with your kids?" Like, no, I was actually going to go down and walk the latest iteration of my golf course that I'm designing. And it's like, oh, and everybody's on NDA, and it's like, yo, wait, you're designing a golf course in Mexico, and so that started, and fast forwarded things. So we had to, prematurely announce it, and we announced it the week that the stock market crashed. But God's voice is, to me, is peace and anxiety is one of like the obvious ways. Hearing God's voice is, it's hard. It's the still small voice, it's not the, he'll be in some big loud things, and those circumstances will happen. But
so the overlap of that is that when the vision for owning Skydive San Diego happened at the hands of Tiger as well.
That's right. That's right.
So
that's right.
He wanted to learn how to skydive.
It was 2 months. It was 2 months after we announced it. The stock market crashed. He had you down. You had already taken him on 60 jumps. Taught him how to skydive, and he had you down. I'm going down to my golf course. Why don't you come down and then
it was his guys called and they said, "Hey, will you go down there and look after him?"
Yeah.
So I dressed like a golfer. I was never more than probably 5 feet from him, 10 feet from him the entire day. He never knew I was there until we got on the bus at the end of the day. And Amy Reynolds, remember?
Yeah.
She looked over and saw, and she's looking at me and she's just like, and I've got my hat pulled down. I'm like, no. And then like, is that Bram? Is that you? And then Tiger turns around. He's like, dude, what are you doing here? I'm like, I don't know.
That's right.
But I was down here. We were me and some of my buddies were teaching him how to skydive, and then Buzz, the current owner, pulled me back in a room and he said, "Hey, listen, what do you think?" And that was when the vision was first laid out.
Yep.
For this, and that took. And that was right as the stock market crashed too.
That was 2008.
So So now it puts in perspective for me your timing on that. I get it now. So while that is happening for you, it's being birthed for me right in the middle of that. And
it was like 9 years later, right? That we bought it, right? 2016.
16.
That's not 9. Anyway, I was thinking, but close. Yeah, and when we bought this, it was a, this incredible, complicated company that had
had potential, but it needed some help, and then after that, a bunch of governmental regulations and stuff came in there and made things even harder, and it was just a complication after complication. But in the middle of it, here's me. It took me 7-8 years of learning, and I was pretty much just focused on the executive summary writing for certain people's propensities and proclivities and their personalities and all those things that go into writing that, researching these people and then writing it for them. And I did 200 of those. And then you and I were talking one day, and I asked you, I just said, hey, you want to come on here and help me with this? Because I don't know what
you make it seem like it was optional for me, and you were super sweet and nice. And we should probably go with that story, because it to me, it didn't sound like, hey, you're partnering with me and we're buying TAC Air. I'm like, TAC what? It's like the drop zone. I'm like, the drop what? I'm like, the skydive place.
And by the way, you're going to learn how to skydive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know anything about
27 skydives. He still doesn't have his A license.
True. Fact. So yeah, thanks for making it seem optional, but it wasn't. But what God told me, and then you said it in a different way, which sort of like verbalized like this feeling is like, hey, I know Mr. Gonzalez, the landowner, is still alive, but he's now, in his 90s. And so I was getting ready, and God said, like, but I want you to continue to hold on that. And I want you to pour into TAC Air, Tactical Air Operations, out of San Diego, with Bramstead. This is Bramstead's Punta Brava. And I, I don't know what else he said. I was,
I think the lesson in that I learned, and I've done that a few other times too with other guys, but in different areas, right? But there's something about, and Dr. Greg, who we had on this show, Pastor Greg, he said you are going to be best at your vision after you have learned how to serve another man's vision. It's going to make you a better leader. You're going to, and especially if you attach yourself to the right people, right? Sometimes the wrong people, because you're going to learn what not to do by sometimes being around the wrong people. Yeah. And I learned everything. Well, I learned a lot about leadership by watching people fail in leadership. And I learned that in military. I learned that in life. I've learned that in, a lot of different areas. And I know what I'm gifted at. I know what I'm not gifted at. And so I've had to learn how to build a team of people that are going to be able to carry on with what they're good at while being attached to the vision that is my vision. But then giving them a piece of that and saying, this is your piece of the vision. Go and go and do that. And then not micromanage them and let them do what they will, because they're better at it. And you end up looking good at the end of the day if you have the right team. You end up looking terrible at the end of the day if you have the wrong team.
Yeah.
But there's something about being able to serve another man's vision and being able to do it in excellence. And that's what you did. There was no real gain in it for you for doing this, and Jimmy, there's no real gain in it. But there you were, and man, I thank God for that every day, because I learned a lot from being around you guys, you and Jimmy, and learning a lot of times what not to do. And it has been it's been quite a ride. And I mean, to this day, I look forward to coming in here every day because this is my other family. You know, when I come in here,
Yeah.
you know, it's just it's amazing. But watching how, because I've had front row. I've had front row seats to this show ever since I've known you. Which when I met you, and I think I met you in 2007.
2008?
I want to say, yeah, because it was before the recession. But Gonzo had attached us, you know. Gonzo, man, shout out to that guy. That guy's amazing, dude. He is such a freaking rock star.
He was doing that urban warfare training for CBP or something, and we were in downtown San Diego.
Oh yeah,
you know? It was like we had to take out some guys. Anyway.
Yeah, it was so fun. But yeah, it was an amazing. It's amazing watching how all that how all that's panning out for you now. So you have a golf course being built. You have a surf and golf resort being built.
It's a private club.
Private
Yes.
club. Private
It's
club.
not
I
a
can't say
resort. Yeah, it's public. It's not public, Jeff. Yeah,
it's going to be a resort, because then you're going to have non-members like me showing up who don't golf well, and I'm going to be ripping big holes in the ground, things like that, and I'm going to replace the divot. I think that's the term. I'm going to do that incorrectly, and I'm going to, when I leave, and I'm probably going to have my boys, and you know, they break things, and they break things a lot. And so by the time we're done with it, it might be a resort. It's probably
yeah.
I apologize in advance for
no, it's fine.
Breaking jet skis, and
my superintendent will really appreciate your divots and all the challenges that go with that with the Bramstead clan.
Golf and surf exclusive club, Punta Brava. The membership, the base of membership that you have is phenomenal. You have a handful of former and actively playing NFL quarterbacks. You have some of the most notable athletes, some of the most notable hockey players. You have some of the best and most well-known athletes. And do you have any Hollywood types in there?
We try not to,
right?
But I think there's a couple who are, not very many, but there's a couple, you know, incredible, you know, families.
Yep.
Who are
business guys,
top
business
entertainment industry. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. So it's happening. So how do you feel now that you're looking back over the journey that you've been on to get to where you are now? And I know you're not saying, okay, I'm not done yet. I mean, and God's not done, and this vision, it hasn't fully happened yet, but I'm watching it unfold, right? But how do you, when you look back over the journey, what happens in your mind when you start looking at where you came from, right? From the vision looking like it was a full collapse of a vision to where now it's starting to unfold, and knowing that it's like, of course, God gave you a specific set of skills to be able to do this. However, even with your own understanding, right? The Bible says, lean not on your own understanding, but it does help to have understanding, to have knowledge.
I would say, like, God didn't give me a specific skill set. Like, I'm a C student in high school and in college. The only reason I got into Pepperdine Law Schools, you know, for that master's program is because the founder, I went to college with his son. I was definitely not the smartest. And so, like, God used me who like doesn't really have a skill set, you know, Mom said I had a great personality. I'm special, but and looking back, what he used was like this thing in me that you SEALs have called like resilience, and he used that because he knew that I could outlast anybody. And I would, if I'm 70 years old, and I would still be working on this vision. And so that should be an encouragement to guys who have a vision, but have by the way, I'm not a real estate developer. Like, I flipped a couple of houses, but before I start this, I didn't have any experience, like golf course, and I wasn't, wealthy. My dad's pastor, mom's a teacher, and so it doesn't matter if you don't have any skill set. Like, you better have a work ethic and some resilience. If you want to see a vision through or a dream through, if it's a good idea,
Yeah. How are your boys with this? Are they excited about it?
Yeah. I'll text them, be like, hey, look who just, text me. He's we have 6 of our founding members are on the nomination committee. And so they do the nominating, and then my partner and I are the kind of the final approval. And these 6 guys are incredible. They're household names, incredible families. They kind of hit everything. The character, reputation, and personalities are kind of the 3 core things we look for in members. And anyway, it's just so fun. Like, hey, I text Sandyal's in Chicago, and Sebastian's here. Look who, we just nominated, who became a member. And it's like, oh my gosh,
that's awesome.
So it's a lot of fun. But the boys got to see Dad pursue a dream, but not at all cost. They saw me do other things, figure out how to provide for the family and just take care of your responsibilities and be present. The first 2 years when the boys were really little, I was stressed. And it was hard for me to handle this risk, and my risk tolerance is through the roof.
Yeah.
But I was, going and doing a ground up construction in a third world country is about as risky as you can, and I had no experience. And so, but after the couple of years, it's like, okay, I'm going to settle in for the long run for this thing. And so the boys got to. That's one of the things that I'm proud of. The boys got to see me model the balance between pursuing your dream and taking care of your family, your responsibilities, and not at all cost.
Yeah.
So,
Brian, it's been awesome, man. I appreciate you coming by, and I learned something about you today. And every time we sit down and have these conversations where it's just you and I always come away with something, and I love that not at all costs. And there are things that are worth keeping in the priorities in balance, and you did that. Man, congratulations on your success, and I mean. By that, I mean the real success. Your family is amazing. Your wife is amazing. Your parents, I love your parents. And so it's one of those things that and you have a tribe. You have a tribe around you. That's one of my favorite parts too. But thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Bram Radio. Stay dangerous.